The two-judge bench of the Supreme Court delivered a split verdict on a batch of petitions challenging the Karnataka High Court judgment refusing to lift the ban on hijab in educational institutions of the state. Justice Hemant Gupta framed 11 questions against the government order. The answers to all these questions, according to him, were against the appellants. Hence, he dismissed all the petitions and maintained the status quo over hijab ban in educational institutions. On the other hand, Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia had a different opinion on the matter. He believed that wearing hijab was ultimately a matter of choice. Nothing less, nothing more. Justice Dhulia also added asking girls to take off their hijab for education was an attack on their privacy and dignity. The Karnataka High Court had said that wearing hijab was not an essential religious practice according to Islam. The court added that prescription of uniform is a reasonable restriction on the fundamental rights. So what really happened today? Here's a quick wrap.
There is no end to the hangama over hijab. 7 months after the Karnataka High Court upheld a government order banning hijab in educational institutes. Petitions challenging the hijab ban led to a split verdict in the Supreme Court. While one judge, Justice Hemant Gupta, dismissed the petitions, the other judge, Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, was of a differing opinion. He said asking girls to take off their hijab is an attack on their privacy and dignity. He said that under the Indian constitutional scheme, wearing a hijab should be simply a matter of choice. It may or may not be a matter of essential religious practice, but it is still a matter of conscience, belief and expression. He said the government order and restrictions on hijab goes against value of fraternity and human dignity. The case has also to be seen in the perspective of the challenges already faced by a girl child in reaching her school. And are we making the life of a girl child any better by denying her education merely because she wears a hijab?
प्राइम मिनिस्टर से सबसे पहले मैं ये अपील करना चाहूँगी कि वो हमारे एजुकेशन को हम पे छोड़ दें और हमारे हिजाब को उसमें कोई कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ना बने हमारा हिजाब, क्योंकि देखिए हिजाब हमारा राइट है और हमें इसको फॉलो करना है.
The matter will now be placed before the Chief Justice of India, who will constitute a larger bench to hear the case afresh. Till then, the hijab ban remains in place.
I expect the judgment. Definitely it will be in favor of Karnataka's rules and act. Whatever the rules and regulations which have been followed now will be valid till the judgment of the higher bench comes.
But many in the opposition are hoping for a more favourable order from a larger bench.
जो हाई कोर्ट का जजमेंट था मेरी राय में it was bad in law, bad in terms of its contents, or it had misused Quranic commentaries and translation. This has serious ramifications, should not have been allowed.
But at a time when women worldwide are demanding not to wear the hijab, can individual choice override institutional autonomy?
Now let me give you a sense of what the hijab backers are saying and what is the viewpoint of those who are opposing it. Pro-hijab, or the defenders, say that Hindus, Sikhs are allowed to wear their religious symbols on their sleeves. Those who are opposing hijab are of the opinion that government has the right to impose uniform, which is essential in schools and in several colleges. Now another viewpoint is that not allowing hijab is selectively targeting Muslims. What about other religions, they ask. On the other hand, the argument is that religious dress is a barrier between students and teachers. The idea is of uniformity. Then, the second set of argument is that hijab along with uniform is not a grave impediment. So, wear a uniform, but on the top of it, you can wear that headgear. It's not about the burqa, but just about that headgear. On the other hand, the argument is that the main concept of school uniform is to maintain uniformity, as I just said. The Muslim personal law protects right to wear hijab is what the argument for hijab is. Those who are opposing it are saying that uniform helps in instilling that sense of camaraderie among students. All of them should look alike, should look uniform. The Kerala High Court, remember, had called hijab as an essential religious practice. But hijab opponents are saying that religious dress code in schools encourage groupism. So you should be all looking alike. So there are several criticisms to the split verdict as we are looking at today. And one of those who has come out expressing his views is Asaduddin Owaisi, AIMIM Chief, is joining me live. Mr. Owaisi, appreciate your time. How are you looking at today's split verdict, sir?
Well, honestly speaking, I was personally expecting that after the fantastic arguments that were made by senior lawyer Shri Dushan Dave and then Devdutt Kamath, Nizam Pasha and other lawyers, we were expecting a unanimous verdict in favor of hijab. But the Honorable Supreme Court judges have decided, which they have a right to differ, and they have differed. But one must remember that one Supreme Court judge has given a judgment in favor of hijab. So this I would call a welcome decision of this Honorable Supreme Court, that a single one of the judges had given such a judgment.
So the entire hijab debate here in India is also being looked at in the context of the rebellion and this entire movement that is playing out in Iran, where women are burning hijab and cutting their hair. How do you view this entire argument that it's not a choice, but clearly a regressive practice?
Well, to answer your question, first of all, it is very wrong on anyone's part to compare India with Iran. India is a country where you have a constitution which has no religion. India is a country where pluralism is a fundamental right. India is a country where choice and privacy is a fundamental right. That is not the case in the country which you have mentioned. And thirdly, end of the day, it is a right to choice which the Indian constitution gives you, whether you want to wear a particular dress or not. So that is the difference. Now I happen to see one video wherein one woman anchor of an English channel is cutting her hair. It is her choice to cut her hair or to remove her hair. But why can't that anchor wear a hijab, or at least say that what the Muslim girls, children are wearing a hijab in Karnataka is a right to choice? So this is clearly, I would call it an intellectual dishonesty for people who are questioning the Muslim girl child right to wear a hijab in India, and to say that, look, in Iran it is not being allowed. So why are you asking Indian Muslims what is happening in Iran? The last point.
Okay.
And it is completely wrong on their part to compare India with Iran.
The larger constitution bench, Mr. Owaisi, will be looking at multiple aspects, whether hijab is an essential religious practice, intrinsic to Islam, whether in case of private institutions, what really prevails, institution or individuals. How do you look at that? Because let's not forget that it has been established by investigating agencies that it was the Popular Front of India that was behind the anti-hijab protests that played out in Karnataka.
No, I would just stick to the hijab judgment which was given by the Honorable Supreme Court today. It was not a dissenting judgment. It is a split verdict,
Yes.
as you rightly said. The
Yes.
one honorable judge, both the honorable judges differed and gave a different opinion. Now, going forward, I would reiterate what Justice Dhulia has said, that he said that the main thrust of my judgment is not the concept of, is the entire concept of ERP was not essential to dispute. The Karnataka High Court took a wrong path. So he said that it is ultimately a matter of choice and nothing more and nothing less. And I'll conclude by, my answer to a question by quoting what Justice Chinnappa Reddy said in the BJ Emanuel case on August 11, 1986. He said suspending students based on their consciously held religious faith violated the Constitution. And Justice Dhulia has rightly pointed out the B.J. Emanuel case wherein children belonging to the Jehovah's Witness, they stood up when the national anthem was sung, but they did not sing it.
Owaisi Saab, since you are quoting Justice Dhulia also said that what really was on his mind and primary question before him, whether we are making girl students' lives better by putting such restrictions when her education is concerned.
Yes, the important points, though the judgment has not been uploaded as we speak as of now, the important point which in my layman's opinion are, he talked about right to choice. He said that the Karnataka High Court was wrong to go into this concept of ERP. Thirdly, he raised that point which you have just mentioned, that how are we making life better for a girl child, because he rightly pointed out that it is common knowledge for girl children to do household chores in urban, in semi-urban, in rural areas before going to school. You know, it is very right. He has touched a very raw point of our society. That is the reality which the Honorable Judge has mentioned today.
So my last question to you, what has happened here is that hijab is now in the domain of politics rather than personal space and culture. Who is doing politics on this?
Well, you must understand that religion and culture are protected by the Constitution. In fact, culture is an unfettered fundamental right in our Constitution. You see, the argument given by BJP is completely farce. Why I say that is that because uniformity, Maria, is not a fundamental right in our Constitution. Freedom of religion is. Uniformity or sameness is not part of our basic structure. You know, pluralism and diversity is part of a basic structure of Constitution. Thirdly, equality does not mean the removal of diversity. That is very important. You know, if children of our country go to school and they see each other wearing a hijab, a sindoor, a Sikh turban or a vibhuti, they will appreciate the beauty of our country and will be preparing themselves for going into the world. If you say that everything, other religious practices will be allowed in school, but not the hijab, that child will form an opinion that this Muslim child is low in my opinion. Do we want that to happen? Because these children are the foundations for our country. They will be heading the country. They will be leading the country tomorrow. The whole future of our country we will be placing on these children of today who will be leading this country tomorrow.
All right. Thank you so much for your time here. Asaduddin Owaisi there, AIMIM Chief, expressing his views on the split verdict of the Supreme Court. Let me bring in